everybody, welcome to News by Muse here. And we're talking with the executive producer, creator of one of the hottest shows right now, not only on Fox, but in the country right now, the cleaning lady, Miranda Kwok. Miranda, first of all, when me and my sister saw the first episode, and what a show. Where did the thought process and where did everything come about for the show?
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate you watching and supporting the show. I had a blind script deal over at Warner Brothers, and they presented a few ideas to me, including the original Argentine format, which is La Chica que Limpia. And I've always wanted to do like a female Breaking Bad. But what really excited me about this particular project was actually to infuse all this stuff about the immigration and her being undocumented and actually telling the story from the Southeast Asian lens and telling the story of this really unlikely hero who is able to, basically have all these, circumstances thrown at her, all these obstacles thrown at her, and somehow she's able to surmount those and, basically make her own way. And, unfortunately, she does get involved with the mob, but, she still is not trying to get into crime, and yet she can't seem to escape it. So, all of this kind of felt really exciting to me to tell this story of somebody who, has to figure out her own way and find her own path.
And I like the way where it's set, how you brought in the characters, because Thony is kind of Thony De La Rosa, who's the main character, is Cambodian Filipino, a cleaning woman in the hotels in Vegas. And when I saw that, I was like, wow, well, that's an interesting way of building the character, because that's something we don't see that often. We don't see whenever we see Vegas, we always see Vegas as the party, have fun. You never bring it down to the level of the people who work within the casinos and the hotels, where this film, right off the bat, you see those people. Was that purposely done? Was that always set in your mind to be able to show that, and that's the way you introduce the character?
Absolutely. When thinking about a story about a cleaning lady who has to clean these crazy crime scenes, I decided what better place than Vegas, which is, as you said, there's so much excitement. There's, anything can happen in Vegas. And yet there's all these people who are below the surface who are basically propping up the city. So you have all this wealth, you have all this, luxury, you have all this hope. And yet it's the people who are, running the show are just scraping by. And I really wanted to shine a light on those characters and the struggles that they go through. And that, again, is what inspired me to create the show. It just made sense to set it in a place like Vegas, where you could really show the dichotomy of the upstairs, downstairs, and how those dynamics work, and how she has to basically navigate through a city like this when she has no resources and no money. How is she going to get by? And how is she going to navigate the medical system? So all these challenges are people, are what people in these circumstances face every day. And I just really wanted to highlight their struggle and also their victories. And, this really is a show about empowerment. And I really wanted to put that forward and have a real strong, resilient, determined woman, actually women, because Thony and Fiona are both going through it. They're very different personalities, but they're both going through it in their own ways. And they also find strength in each other. So, family is such an important part of the show as well. And that's something that was really important to really show and embrace.
Yeah. And Elodie Young, who you found, who plays Thony, where did you find her? Because she's so good in this role.
She is incredible. She really, really is incredible. We cast a wide net. We searched all over LA, New York, Toronto, Vancouver, Australia, UK, and it's hard to find someone to play this role. It's a very challenging role. There's a wonderful dichotomy of her having to play this invisible cleaning lady, but at the same time be all these amazing things and be this really strong, formidable doctor who's extremely intelligent and compassionate. All those layers. And so there was a time when people were starting to say, well, are we really going to find an Asian character or an Asian actor to play this role? And so at that point, I decided to like take a deep dive into the internet. And I actually did manage to pull up a few more names, including Elodie, who's somebody we haven't seen yet. And yet, she's done a bunch of stuff. She's an amazing actor. So right before COVID shut everything down, we actually had our audition. We met with her. We had the director still in Albuquerque on a Skype call. This was before Zoom was even a thing, giving her notes. And so we actually cast her right at the beginning of the pandemic after everything shut down. And that was actually a great encouragement from Fox, because even though we had no idea when we were going to start up again, they just went ahead to cast her because she was just that incredible. So she auditioned, she had, she showed us such a wide range, even in the emotion, of emotion in the audition process, that we knew once we saw her, we found our gal.
Yeah, and to include the cast is such an amazing cast. Aiden Canto, Oliver Hudson, Martha Milian. I mean, it's such a great ensemble cast, and they all play their roles so well. It just seems to gel. I don't know what it is. It just seems to gel. What was it with the rest of the cast to fill that around? Because these are some big heavy hitter actors.
Absolutely. Well, we had an incredible casting team as well, with Junie Laurie Johnson and Libby Goldstein. Kimberly Hope was heading it up in Warner Brothers. So we had a team definitely to get us those bigger names like Oliver and Aiden. And honestly, yeah, they really did. Everyone meshed right away. And I think part of it is everyone was extremely passionate about this piece. Because we were really tapping into stories and perspectives we haven't seen before. I think that was really important for everyone to do it right, and to put everything they had. And I feel like all of our actors just put their hearts and souls into this. They really dug into their characters, and really wanted to be as authentic as possible. I mean, Aiden Canto is fantastic. He actually grew up on a border town between northern Mexico and the U.S. and lived in Mexico and went across the border to go to school when he was a kid. So he actually was very familiar with this territory and the people that would have come from northern Mexico into Vegas. And so he really dug into what that would be, and was really excited to play a character that wasn't just the stereotypical bad guy and thug, that this is a guy who actually came from humble beginnings, and that's how he connects with Elodie's character. And so you instantly see this amazing bond between them that we're so happy and grateful for.
And this is what I love too, is that especially when it comes to network television, you really don't see the diversity in network television the way you should. This is the first show that I've seen Asian, Filipino, Pacific Islanders, Filipinos, Latinos. It's a melting pot of diversity in the show, and it shows what real life is, which is sometimes dumb to say, but when network television, you don't see that all the time. How much of an importance was there to be able to show that diversity and to be able to fight to have Asian Pacific Islanders as leading cast members and Latinos as leading cast members in the show?
Absolutely. It was very, very important to me, and also to the network and the studio. Everyone actually was completely on board with showing a very, very diverse cast and a very authentic cast. And as you said, yeah, it is an absolute reflection of what society is in America. America is a melting pot. America does have so many people from many different backgrounds and cultures. And it was just so amazing to be able to really showcase so many different characters from so many different backgrounds. And what's, part of the inspiration of doing that is really just showing that people are more similar than they are different. And at the end of the day, we are all the same. And this is what the show is about. It's about humanity and finding the humanity in all of us. It's
Yeah.
about showing that no matter where you're from, you know, we all have a struggle. There's so many people who've you know, taken all these extreme, extraordinary measures to get here, and you know, and just make things work and to find their way no matter what it takes. And that is like a real theme and driving force behind the show. And that's also something that we really wanted to show.
Yeah, and that's the one thing. Like I always look into a lot of the scenes, especially when it's the first episode. And I really enjoyed when they were in the household. You see the son comes out and he's holding the Jolly Bee bucket, which you never in I don't I can't remember in my low near time relative time history I've ever seen a Jolly Bee bucket in TV in a TV show, which kind of made me happy because like my best friend is Filipino. I I've had Jollibee at their house, and to see that is there's something special about even the smallest thing. I can only imagine if I was the one who was like, "Hey, Jollibee," and you can only imagine how many hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people just connected, just because it feels like either a friend's home or their home. Uh,
I'm actually really glad you noticed the Jollibee, because that is something that that we fought for, because
mhm,
Fox actually has a policy against product placement.
mhm, yeah,
And so it was explicitly not product placement,
mhm,
but what we pushed for was a cultural touchstone.
mhm,
And
yeah,
to say, as you said, like this is something that is in many, many Filipino households.
mhm,
And so it is just those little cultural touches that actually make the
mhm,
difference.
yeah,
And so they allowed us to have it, not as a product placement, but just
mhm,
as something that would exist in the home. And our, you know, our production designer was
mhm,
also amazing. She designed the entire house.
mhm,
That house was actually built on a studio. And Rochelle is just amazing. And
mhm,
you'll actually, if you actually do look very closely, you'll see like there's a pot on the stove with
mhm,
ramen hanging over
mhm,
the side, and
yes,
there's all these like Asian candies,
mhm,
and you know, Fiona's eating shrimp chips.
mhm,
So we made sure to put in, like, it's food, right?
mhm,
It's
yeah,
everything.
yeah,
And you know, people were, you know, everyone was
mhm,
asking, you know, from the production design to, you know,
mhm,
wardrobe, everything, like what does feel more culturally
mhm,
specific? And the answer more than anything is food. Because
mhm,
when you leave your country, like you do,
yeah,
you know, you do try to immerse yourself in
mhm,
American culture, but the thing you miss most is that food. So
mhm.
that's why we made sure to put it in there.
Yeah. Yeah, and those little details really shine. Like those are things that you pick up like literally off the bat and you start building a connection with those main characters very easily. And that's like I think you did an amazing job in putting definitely doing that and being able to show their story and to fight for those type of things and really put them in there. I it really helped me connect to the show since episode 1. And one thing I do want to go talking off the show, getting into how you got started. How Tell us a little bit about that. How did you get started in the business and made your way up to now one of the top shows in TV?
Well, I guess I started before I knew I started.
Hmm.
I was actually good at visual arts. And so my
Hmm.
teacher, Miss Avery, sent me to audition for an art school, Claude Watson School for the Arts, which was the
Hmm.
first in Canada. And that is actually my first exposure to the arts, to storytelling. And from there, you know, I guess at first I became an actor. That's just seemed like the more obvious choice,
Hmm.
to be in front of the camera. You know, I was singing and dancing on a kid video show. I had my first agent when I was 16 years old. But you know, it was tough because there's not a lot of roles for
Hmm.
Asians. And there was a point where you know, actually several times where I, you know, thought like, is this really what I should be doing? Because there are not enough good roles out there. And you know, and actually it was seeing, this is a while back, I saw Sandra Oh on a cover of a magazine,
Hmm.
and that actually inspired me to stay. And I thought, there's an Asian woman on the cover of a
Hmm.
magazine. And you know, maybe there is a way to show our stories. And so I moved to, after working as an actor in Toronto, I moved to LA to continue my career. And that's when I met all these amazing writers and directors. And I realized there's so many other opportunities. And I'm not exactly the kind of person to sit around and wait for my phone to ring. So I started actually producing first. I went to Film and Independence Project Involved, which was to groom me as a producer. From there, I actually, they recommended me for a scholarship at the LA Film School for their 9-month feature development program. So I went into that as a producer. I had a screenwriting class in there for feature writing, but never TV. Honestly, I actually am self-taught as a writer. And so I produced 2 shorts, but then at the same time, I was just really driven again to tell a story that mattered, to tell a story that was important. And, you know, producing is never easy, especially when you're starting out, you know, low budget indie stuff, you have no credentials. And so I decided that in order to tell the kinds of stories that I wanted to tell, I had to write myself. And so I was inspired to write a story about the, I don't know if you know anything about the comfort women, but during World War II, the Japanese military actually abducted over 200,000 women and forced them into sexual slavery to serve their troops. And I actually discovered that story when I walked into the Toronto Metropolitan Library, and they had like a display, and you know, they had pictures of women and their stories, and I was just heartbroken and devastated. And then I also felt ashamed that how did I not know about this? And then I did further research and I realized no one knew about this because it was buried for 50 years. And when I realized that, that's when I was inspired to actually write a feature screenplay. And my roommates at the time actually joked, they told me that I should set an alarm clock for when I should go to sleep, because it literally kept me up all night wanting to tell this story. And again, I had no idea how to write a screenplay. I read screenplays, I read books on how to write a screenplay. So I was just kind of winging it. Took a long time, but I actually ended up winning the Slam Dance screenplay competition with that script. And so that I guess was the first thing that, you know, got me some attention. But of course, you know, this is a screenplay about, you know, sexual slavery, which is not an easy story to get off the ground. And, you know, Slam Dance is kind of known as an independent film festival. And so when I won, there were a lot of, you know, well, not a lot, but there was a few people reaching out saying, I want to read your script. And they're expecting some kind of, you know, thriller or horror. And it's like, no, not that. It's, you know, this epic historical fiction. So I finally did get through a referral. I got an agent and he said, you know, what about television? And I thought, well, what about television? Because I have no idea about, you know, how to write. And so, you know, he said, you know, write a pilot. I wrote a pilot. It got me a few meetings, and then, you know, some executives said, well, you've proven you can write. Now you need to prove you can write someone else's show. So I watched 3 seasons of House, wrote my first spec script in 2 weeks, actually faster than I imagined I could write it. And he said, this has put you at the top of my pitching list. And then the writer's strike happened. So I, you know, again, I had to pound the pavement. I submitted to diversity programs and managed to get in the CBS diversity program. Was a finalist for the NBC Writers on the Verge. And then right around that time, I actually lucked out, and I met the showrunner of Spartacus. And, you know, it was like, you know, I went out with a friend who actually was in one of the shorts that I produced. She was a biker chick. And she said, what's going on? And I said, well, things are actually going well on the writing front. And she's like, well, you should talk to Steve because he just got his own show and he's staffing next week. So it was a quick 5-minute conversation. I didn't think anything of it because it's Hollywood and, you know, you meet people all the time. And the next day she called, she said, well, Steve was really impressed by you. Do you have a spec? I sent my spec. I got an email saying, read your spec, loved it, and I hate everything I read. Can you meet tomorrow for lunch? So I met with Steve for lunch. He said, I need another sample. The only other sample I had was the Comfort Woman script, which normally isn't a great spec for television, but it was about slavery. Spartacus is about slavery. So he sent my 2 specs to Stars and Ghost House, and 2 weeks later I got staffed. So that was, I guess, the long story to my start as a writer in the TV business.
But it's a great story though, because it's something that for anybody who's watching and who will be watching this, I mean, it's a great thing to hear, and hopefully it inspires younger individuals who want to be in your spot as well to not give up and to fight for your, well, for what you want to do and what you believe in.
Thank you. Thank you. I
Not
appreciate that. Yeah.
and I think you just nailed it in the head as well with everything. You really did an amazing job just putting everything together, not only on this show, but I mean, look at what you've done. You've taken the lead and you're able to tell the stories that you want to tell. And I think that's needed in this industry right now.
Absolutely. I think, we, especially on, when you have a platform and you have such a wide audience, then why not tell something that matters? Why not tell a story that's going to move people and affect people and help them through any situation they're going through?
Mhm.
I actually was a counselor when I was younger. I counseled on a rape crisis line, and it was a really tough thing to do, trying to talk to people and encourage people, help them find resources. And I feel so fortunate now that millions of people are watching this show, which is amazing. Like it has actually blown my mind. Because this project started out with me late at night, typing away on my computer, and now it's something that millions of people are seeing. And so I have a lot of gratitude to be able to have this platform to put marginalized voices on the screen and actually tell their stories. And also feel a great responsibility with that as well, because it's never been done, because we've never actually had Southeast Asian female leads on primetime television. So it's really exciting.
Yeah, and I can only imagine how excited you must be that with this, every episode seems to be gaining more and more people. The word of mouth is really supporting this. Uh, have they told you yet? Is there a season 2? Are you already starting to plan season 2? What are some of the things that you've been thinking about already?
Oh, we definitely have ideas for season 2, and we're just, waiting to hear what happens. And hopefully, if the numbers stay high, which they have been for the first few weeks, and tonight's episode is actually going to be pretty amazing as well. It's got Diamond Phillips and his daughter Gracie Phillips. And episode 5 next week is a huge episode as well. There's a lot of important storylines in episode 5 as well. And yeah, they do. Honestly, I'm excited by the show myself. I'm excited about what we came up with in the writers' room, everything that we put on screen, everything that the actors brought to the table as well. And I feel like I'm happy. I'm so happy at the product myself, at the results, because again, everyone was so impassioned and dedicated to making the best show this can be.
Yeah, and we talked to Lou Diamond Phillips last year for his Fox show, and and what was it like? And last question for the interview, but what was it like to have Lou Diamond Phillips come in and be a part of this show for you?
Lou Diamond is a fantastic human being, and again, like yeah, you'll see. I mean, he brought so much to the table in his story arc and the emotion that he brought. There's a different story that we told with Lou, which is a different angle on being Asian American. We told this. We've been telling the story with Tony and Fiona being immigrants, being undocumented, and now we're telling a story with Lou about being Asian American, and also what that means in terms of his identity. And that's something that really resonated with him because, as we know, for a long time, there were no Filipino characters
Yeah.
on TV and film. I mean, they just didn't exist. So most people thought that he was Latino, or First Nations. And, a lot of people didn't even know he was Asian, never mind
Yeah.
Filipino. So that's a story that really resonated with him, and he really embraced and really just jumped into. And so, yeah, he's a stellar human being, and we're just so grateful that we were able to have him and tell this story with him as well.
Well, Miranda, all I could say is thank you so much for being a part of this and being a part of this interview and being a part of MUSE TV, because this show, I'm already saying now, and I'm ready to call my friends at Fox, like this thing better be picked up. I'm kind of because this is a great show. This is a really good show. I've enjoyed every single episode. Even if I miss it, you get to see it on Hulu. So I've been able to catch up on anything that I missed on Hulu. And it's such a great show. It has to be a season. There has to be a season 2 because I want to see more of the story. I mean, we haven't even got into the whole first season. I'm already like, I want to see what's this gonna be like as it expands. Miranda, thank you so much. I cannot
Thank
say enough. And the cleaning lady is on Mondays on Fox. You can't miss it. It's 9 o'clock, correct? 9 p.m. is the show
9 o'clock, 8
airtime.
Central.
Yeah, so don't miss it. All I say, if you want to catch up, get back. If you haven't seen it yet, go to Hulu, catch up, and then go on every Monday to go when it comes out live, so that you could catch up on the episodes. Miranda, thank you so much, and we look forward to talking with you next time.
Thank you so much, Michael.
No problem. And links will be below if you're on the YouTube channel, so that you'll be able to find it and be able to watch it for yourself. As a link for Fox and a link for Hulu as well, so because you got to catch up. Got to catch up and be able to catch the episodes before you see the new one. So definitely do that. So thank you so much, Miranda, and we'll see you next time here on MUSE.